We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
Go on without me. Just go.
A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness.
Life, finds a way.
Then put your little hand in mine. There ain't no hill or mountain we can't climb. Babe, I got you, babe. I got you, babe.
Okay, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties, cause it's cold out there.
It's cold out there.
Welcome to Silver Screen Biases, where we dig into a critically acclaimed movie and evaluate the truth claims within it. I'm Nelson.
This is Jeff.
And this week,
Groundhog Day.
what year was that made?
1993.
Who's the director on that?
Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis. I remember.
Ghostbusters, Multiplicity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He
Which, in Andy
he did
McDowell.
Multiplicity?
Andy McDowell was in Multiplicity as well, yeah.
You know, the funny thing about Multiplicity, especially because last week we did
Oh, yeah.
we did clothes.
We did.
And when I posted it, I posted that Christopher Nolan conceived of the idea while watching Harry Potter and Multiplicity simultaneously. You know, on the last episode, we had some technical difficulties where Jeff and I do not sound as good as we like to have ourselves sound.
Right.
Luckily, Doc Dixon sounded great.
He was great. He was a wonderful guest.
Wonderful guest.
It was a fantastic episode.
Really carried the show.
Yeah.
Really brought something that we've been missing.
Yes, which is witchcraft.
Yeah, exactly. We're still not sure on the whole how that stage magic stuff.
But he was swell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Multiplicity and Andy McDowell.
Andy McDowell, yeah. So Rita.
Before we go much further, though, let's take a moment to acknowledge our affiliate link in the show notes. Tuttle Twins made by Connor Boyack. He takes complicated works of literature that kind of highlight how to be good people.
Yeah.
And puts them in ways that kids can understand.
In an academic way, too. Like, so it's not just like, it's not just like one level. Like, it's multifaceted. Like, they're also learning about the world, the history of things, like just like, and learning how to be a good person on top of it. So it's multifaceted. So
and it does look at the world from a more conservative libertarian lens. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's I haven't seen anything in there that my more left leaning friends would outright object to. Check it out, TuttleTwins.com. They've got a YouTube series. Yep. They've got books. They've got toddler books that are really more of jokes. And they recently launched a book on American history that is really excellent. I've been trying to get my hands on a copy of it. I've just seen snippets and stuff online. But yeah, check them out in the show notes. When you click through there, they know that we sent you. Anything you purchase, we get a thank you from them on. And if you want to sponsor us directly, there's in the show notes, buymeacoffee.com. You can kick a few bucks our way, and that helps cover the cost of producing the show.
Keeps putting out some cool episodes. Helps us immensely.
That's right. All right, Jeff.
Yes.
Groundhog Day. Tell me about it.
Groundhog Day, 1993.
How old were you?
Oh, man. They filmed this mid-93, so I was mid-3 years old. So, yeah. So I was getting ready to turn 4.
Nice. Big year for you.
Big year? Yeah. It was vital.
Yeah.
You know, I probably had all my teeth, by then. And, I had just gotten a sister, so there's that. Yeah. So, yeah. Big stuff.
Peaked in preschool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a milestone year for me.
A banner year for sports, too.
Championships. Man.
I was 1 or 2.
Okay. Well, okay. Depending on, yeah.
I'm bad at math.
No, it's fair. We're not a math podcast. That's all right.
Yeah, we are. We're going to review the worldview and mathematics of critically acclaimed movies. We need Lucas back for that. We need a doctor of economics to really break down the mathematics.
Yes. Silver screen angles and biases. We'll make it.
There's a joke there somewhere.
If
you think of a good one, write it into us.
Oh man! All right, had you seen this movie before, Nels?
I have. I think it's been a year, maybe two. I'm not like I watch it every Groundhog Day.
Right.
I know some people who do, and that's actually what our Harold Ramis wanted. He wanted it to be perennial.
Yeah, essentially the holiday movie for the seasonal movie for Groundhog Day. Yeah, it's what everyone does to celebrate Groundhog Day.
There's nothing like that for like President's Day,
right?
Or Columbus.
You could,
Day.
I mean, maybe that's what we should petition. Maybe National Treasure should be the President's Day holiday movie. Maybe not.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, no.
National Treasure is good. Is it in the top 250?
No. Sure isn't.
Tell me some more production stuff about this movie.
All right, the budget was between 14.5 to 30 million in 92. So it was pretty vague in the numbers I found, but it ran in there. So what would that equivalent to today?
So since 1990, the U.S. dollar has halved, so double that amount. So it's somewhere between 28 and 60 million.
So depending on where the actual number was for the budget. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in our lifetime, Jeff, the U.S. dollar has halved.
Man.
Isn't that a great
Good
thing?
Good times.
Pretty neat, huh?
It is 8.1 on the IMDb out of 10 scale. And that's, that rank comes from just the IMDb logged in users and how they rank it. Mm-hmm. It's currently, as of recording this episode, number 224. So it's closer to the bottom.
Okay.
So it's very close to the bottom. But it is number 224 as of today. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's 94% on the tomato meter.
Okay.
88 with the audience. So very good on both ends.
Yeah.
It's very good on both ends.
Have we ever discussed on here how Rotten Tomatoes determines their scores?
We haven't, because I'm actually not sure of that.
Oh.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
So for the critic score, if the critique was more positive than negative,
okay,
it's a good one. And if it's more negative than positive, it's a bad one.
Okay.
And then they just take the quantity of good reviews and the quantity of bad reviews, and that's their percentage. This gets a little misleading, especially if you look at specific critics, like because each website kind of handles critiques differently.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Different scales, different. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have like one critic give a movie a C-. Okay, and then another critic give it a 65%. And then Rotten Tomatoes says, oh, well, the C-, that's a negative review, but a 65%, that's positive because that's above 50. Well, they're actually both 65%. Right? And you'll see that a lot on Rotten Tomatoes. So even the critic reviews can be a little misleading.
Right.
But luckily, when you have enough of a sample size, and critically acclaimed movies like these get a lot of different critics weighing in, the number gets better.
Mm-hmm.
I still personally value more the audience score, because the audience score is a combination of fans and people who disliked it enough to go and say something.
Right. Yep.
So I think audience scores tend to be far more indicative of the quality of a movie or the enjoyability of a movie, right? Because we've covered movies here that we didn't enjoy, but objectively it's a well-made movie.
Correct.
We've also covered movies here that are the opposite,
right? I
think this kind of lands more in the opposite. As far as like what it's doing film-wise, I don't think it's not like Into the Wild. Right. It's not an artiste film. It's a good movie though.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it. Yeah. So this was my first time watching it.
Okay. Did I answer all that based off of first time watching it? No. Okay.
No, because you answered that question, then I went into the stats.
I was like, man, I got into a rabbit trail.
Yeah, I went into stats, and then now I'm answering the question. So, growing up, my parents like Bill Murray, but for some reason, growing up, whenever this movie was discussed, just from what I remember, I never remember hearing good things about it. So I never had a desire to watch it as I got more independent in what I was choosing to watch movies, just because like growing up, I was like, it was just kind of repeated in my head. Oh no, that movie's not good. All that. So I've never seen it before. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. I've never had a reason to doubt Bill Murray, but it was just one of those things like, well, my parents don't like it and I like my parents. So maybe there's a connection there. So I just there was just never that pull for me to go watch it. Glad I watched it. I'm getting ahead. Like I'd watch it again. Like it was one that like, yeah, this is fun. This is a fun movie. It was actually, and maybe this is a good starting point to get into what we're getting to. Like, it actually covered some pretty serious topics. Like even though it's considered a comedy, like it's a comedy movie. Like it's not like your Dumb and Dumber comedy. Like it handles some pretty serious topics. You got suicide. You've got like, what if it's your last day to live? You've got love. You've got like, just like, there's some pretty heavy things that they're not just basically touched. Like they go into in depth, or he experienced those things in very vivid ways. Yeah. It's like, I liked the juxtaposition of comedy to depth to it. Now, granted, it's not like a Schindler's List or another thought-provoking, just drama-filled movie. Like, I mean, it was
Babe, Pig in the City.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm getting emotional just thinking about that one. Babe.
Pouring up with the homies.
Bah ram you, Nelson. Bah ram you. But yeah, I really enjoyed just the joke. Then, oh wow, that's heavy. I can relate to that joke. I liked that. Yeah. And I thought Bill Murray did a great job. It's actually interesting. Some of the people that were up for the role of the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you? Okay, so Harold originally didn't. Bill Murray was the last option because that's obviously the one they went to. But he looked into.
It's like how when you lose something, it's always in the last place you look.
I know Chevy Chase was in the running. I can
see Chevy.
Out of all the other, Michael Keaton was also in the running.
Was this before or after Multiplicity?
This is before.
Okay.
This is before Multiplicity. So, and then there was a couple other people I didn't quite recognize, or I don't have that note in front of me. But
Michael Keaton's an interesting one because he's an affable person.
Yeah.
Whereas Chevy Chase is not.
Right.
Like he's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
And so plays jerks well.
Yeah. And Bill Murray did a good job too, being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like I'd have a hard time seeing Michael Keaton being a jerk versus Chevy Chase. Now Chevy Chase is pretty known for being a jerk.
But then again, to be fair, that was one of the big criticisms about Michael Keaton being cast as Batman.
Oh, yeah.
People were like, no, he's a comedian and he's funny and he's likable. He'll never work as Batman.
Right. That's true.
Arguably one of the better ones.
It is fun to see people outside of their normal element of acting and doing something. But so so Bill Murray did this. Harold Ramis. So just a little bit behind the scenes and production stuff. Like, let me get to the actual note here. Bill Murray, this is from IMDb. So like I just took to cite my source here. Anyone can look this up. Bill Murray was undergoing a divorce at the time of the filming. And he was obsessing about this film. Like I think it was one of those things, like he was coping with the move. He was coping with his divorce through the movie. That's the way I interpret this fact here. And I guess he would call Harold Ramis constantly, talking about the movie. And then Harold would send him to the screenwriter, Danny Rubin, and they would just iron out these anxieties of the film and stuff. And this actually led to Harold and Bill Murray not speaking to each other for multiple years.
Really?
Yeah.
That bad?
Yeah. After the production of this movie, it kind of, for a while, put a stint in their relationship. So yeah. So just, this was an interesting movie to do at such a hard time in a personal life, you know?
Yeah.
Especially a movie focused on love and
a movie about introspection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's as much as I know about Bill Murray's personal life. But that would be a tough season to film a movie about this topic and then be going through that personally. Yeah. Yeah.
One production note that I have, which is, especially with older movies, it's interesting when things are filmed outside.
Right.
So when the blizzard hits and he's in the highway talking to the state trooper, like that scene is overdubbed. And I don't know if they got the same actor to do the state trooper as they did for the overdub. And the voice just doesn't yeah, it's hard to time it perfectly anyway. You're going to get the lips a little bit off, but also the voice just doesn't quite feel right on him. It was funny.
And Bill Murray does that weird thing with his voice in that one moment too, where he's showing emotion because he's angry.
Yeah.
He does like that weird inflection on something, and it caught me off guard. I'm like, wait, what is that? They're like, oh, he's angry. Okay.
Yeah,
it's a weird way to show emotion.
He did it in the scene, so then he had to do it in the dub as well.
Yep.
And like the timing's just a hair off.
Yeah. This movie was not filmed in Pennsylvania. It was filmed in Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
Very close to where Bill Murray's from. I don't know the town names.
Come on, feel the Illinois.
Yeah, but filmed in Illinois. So I forget. I don't have the name of the town. All my notes are all over the place, but I don't have the name of the town.
Punxsutawney.
Well, that's Pennsylvania.
Oh,
but the town in Illinois that there's where every the step where Bill would step in the puddle.
Yeah.
There's a plaque on the sidewalk there. It says Bill stepped here.
Oh, interesting.
In the town in Illinois.
Is the hole still there? Or did they get around to
I
fixing it?
think the hole was a prop hole.
Right in the prop hole.
Typical prop holes, yeah. And then the corner where Ned would always where Ned would come up every time and try to sell his life insurance. That there's a plaque that says this is Ned's corner.
Yeah.
In that town of Illinois.
Really, it's more the homeless guy's corner.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. Really, the true hero of the movie.
Yeah, the homeless guy that dies repeatedly every day.
Yeah. Which before we get into the biases,
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Do you know? And you probably do. This is probably one of the things you've looked up. Now, and just for the listeners, Nelson and I intentionally not talk like. Say we watch the movie days before we record the episode. Yeah. We intentionally don't talk about any of our opinions, our emotions. Like even if it's just I liked it, I don't like it. We keep all that to ourselves till we record.
That's right.
So some of this to dialogue, Nelson and I are like sharing reactions for the first time. So Nelson may or may not already know this fact. Do you know how many days Bill Murray's character repeated?
So I've seen several different estimates over the years. So I did look it up again in preparation of this. There's a handful of different estimates. Mm-hmm. You tell me what you found.
Okay, so I have this is from IMDb. This is from Harold Ramis. So the first, before I get to the exact amount of days or close to the exact, there are 38 days depicted in the film.
Right.
But it's very much assumed that he does a lot of days that we don't even see.
That's right.
So there's 38 days that we see on screen.
Right.
Now Harold Ramis states that and this is again IMDb, the original idea was for Phil to live February 2nd for about 10,000 years. So
yeah, it was actually in the script.
Yeah. Then later he says Phil will probably live the same day. Then after the movie he says Phil probably lived the same day for about 10 years.
He said that in the behind the scenes featurette.
Correct.
Yeah.
In post-production, he said, so probably about 10 years. So 10 years of the same day.
Okay. Prepare to have your mind blown.
Bring it on.
A independent study.
Love these.
Some blog came along and said, well, let's take a look at that and see if it's right. And they came out with 8 years and some change.
Okay, it's close.
Yeah.
It's close to 10, yeah.
To which Harold Ramis said, that can't possibly be right. And I once said 10, and that's not enough either. With the stuff he learned and all that stuff, it's got to be somewhere between 30 and 40 years. Wow. So then, I don't have his name, but over on whatculture.com, here it is, Simon Gallagher, linked in the show notes. Simon Gallagher did a lengthy amount of research to determine his own approximation.
I hope there's schools funding this research.
No. But What Culture, the internet rag, did fund him, paid him for his work.
Nice.
The final count, and he breaks it all down. You can get all the details. 12,395 days, or 33 years and 350 days, or 413 months, 1,766 weeks. 413 months or 1,766 weeks. But yeah, so about 35 years, give or take. So Harold Ramis' first estimate was 10, and an independent fact checker is like, probably about 8. His second estimate's 30 to 40. Another independent fact checker says 35.
I mean, the only thing that we know that he did in this movie, depicted in the movie, that he went from knowing nothing to mastering was piano, right? Was there any other skill that we see him learn outside of getting to know people's stories?
Yeah.
Which that doesn't take 10 years to get to know someone every day. Besides piano,
it does take, I'd say the way he knows people takes about a week.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Still person. Very minimal.
Yeah. And not, keep in mind, not just a week of knowing somebody, a week where every day you're starting from scratch with them, but you remember the conversation.
Right. And then getting to the different places each. Yeah.
That's right. So skills, piano,
Piano.
which he goes from not being able to do scales to playing jazz piano.
Yeah.
That is years and years of work.
Yeah.
We know that at least at one point he said that he spent 5 hours a day, every day for 6 months, learning how to throw cards into a hat.
That's right. Yes.
He learned to speak French and memorized French poetry.
Mm-hmm.
He memorized the exact timing for a bank robbery.
That's right.
That would have taken weeks.
Yeah.
He, what were some of the other ones?
He watched a lot of Jeopardy.
Yeah, he memorized Jeopardy. I think you could probably have.
I mean, that's one. Yeah, that's one.
couple
one
weeks.
episode of Jeopardy.
You see that episode. You only get to see it once a day,
Right.
but you see it every day.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you could probably learn that within a week.
Yeah.
The ice sculpture.
Oh, that would have. Yeah.
Now,
that and the piano would have taken some time.
I do want to say I did ice sculptures in high school.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is that a Canadian thing?
No, I did that here in the
Sorry,
States. That was
stereotype.
but the learning curve on that is pretty steep, right? So
I'm not going to argue that.
you can go from not really knowing much about it to, if you have the tools, being pretty competent with it in a few tries.
Okay.
Now, his ice sculpture is pretty advanced.
And then he did the one in the snow later in the movie too, which I'm assuming those skills would be transferable.
Yeah. The snowman?
Well, he made Rita's face out of the snow. Yeah, gotcha. But yeah, snowman. I can do snowman.
So ice
content,
sculptures are very unlike pretty much any other sculpting medium. It's pretty forgiving, pretty easy. So it was a pretty advanced sculpture. So like, no joke, it took him time to learn this, but that one's probably like at his level, I'd say maybe a month.
Yeah.
Doing it every day. But yeah, we're looking at about 35 years.
That's crazy. That's
trapped in the same day.
Longer than my entire life.
Yeah.
Trapped in the same day over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like that oh man. Like that's a heavy concept. Like yeah, which I don't think, I'm pretty sure this movie's not in the top 250, which it would be in mine. Truman Show.
Oh, I think it is.
Oh, is Truman Show in the top 250?
I'll check it right now.
All right, let's look it up because that's one of my movies favorite movies that's also a comedy, but it's a heavy topic. It's like there's
dark comedy.
Yeah.
So one thing I thought was really interesting with this movie is that there is never even attempted an explanation of what happened or why.
Right.
And Harold Ramis also struggled to determine what his reason was going to be. And you know what he decided on?
I think I read something, but I'll give this one to you. Yeah.
He basically said that he realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what caused it, because ultimately what matters is that it happened. And now he's stuck in this time loop. Now, I would disagree with him slightly. It does matter because if somehow he were able to determine what happened, then they would give him information as to how to solve it. But also, the movie kind of insinuates that it was acceptance that allowed him to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And that if he had been trying to solve, well, actually, he did try to solve it. And that trying to solve it didn't solve it.
Yeah. That was actually one of my biggest beefs of the movie, which, and I say biggest beefs, but it's minimal because I still enjoyed the movie. But like when it ended,
it just kind of ends.
Yeah. And I like, there was a part where I'm like, I need some closure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm glad he got out of it. Like, I was rooting for him to get out. Like, I did not want it to end with him just going over and over. Like, because I honestly, I was thinking it was going that way too. Like, there was a point in the movie where I'm like, I don't think he's going to get out of this. So,
I almost think a better ending would be end with the same day that they had
and
just fade to black.
Oh, like an Inception type of ending.
Yeah.
Where he spins a top right before he goes to bed.
Yeah.
And then goes
right at 5:59.
Right at 5:59. Yeah.
And then it just
you see a wobble.
And then it
credits.
Just beeps 6 o'clock, and you hear the song start, and it just ends.
I can't do that. We'll get unfun. But
you can do 15 seconds.
I did get a note. I did find a note, and this is IMDb too. So I mean, I'm not fact checking these fact checkers, but early drafts of the script explain the cause of Phil's Connor weird experience.
Yeah.
A disaffected ex-lover named Stephanie cast a spell on him to teach him a lesson to make him And the lesson was to make him make sweet love to groundhogs all over the land while reading Charles Dickens. That would have been a completely different movie.
Very different movie.
Yeah.
Even if you scrap that part and just it's a jilted ex-lover who casts a spell, that alone changes the movie a lot.
Yeah.
It changes what the movie has to be about.
And I think it's vague enough, but we also know enough about Phil to put the pieces together.
Yeah.
Like, we know he's a jerk.
Yeah.
We know he doesn't, like, I mean, he's a Grinch. He's a Scrooge. I mean, like,
He played Scrooge
he's
earlier.
a typical character that just out for themselves. Like, I mean, it's like, we kind of understand he's a good candidate for a life learning lesson, but we don't know, like, what altruistic power did it. We don't know, like, did he touch something magical? Did he say a magic word? Like, there is some part of it where I'm just like, is this a fictitious world? Like, is there other people? Like, I would like to see, like, I'd like to know. I don't know. I want to know some of the sci-fi behind it. Either way, it wasn't one of those endings where I'm like, I hated it. Like, it was like. It still ended in a way where I'm like, okay.
It's a disappointing ending.
It's just, I need
unsatisfying. It's unsatisfying.
There's a good way to put it.
And also, there's an issue I have with it, right? So, in one hand, he's grown as a person and he's now incredibly generous. Mm-hmm. And it's through this generosity that Andy's character becomes attracted to him, right? And they spend the evening together in a loving but not intimate way.
Right.
But he spent all that money under the understanding that tomorrow was all going to start again anyway.
Yeah.
Would he have been as generous if he knew that he'd wake up in the morning and have just spent all of his savings on health insurance and WrestleMania tickets and?
Yeah.
And so that part is unsatisfying for me.
Yeah. But maybe that wasn't the catch. You know, maybe the catch was just like, whoever was teaching him a lesson, what other being or existence was teaching, like, maybe it wasn't that, maybe it was just the idea of just, like, he needed to experience this ultimate selflessness.
Yeah.
This whole, like, no matter what tomorrow brings. Like, because you know deep down inside, like...
No, because but at 35 years of it, it's not no matter what tomorrow brings. It's I know what tomorrow brings.
Right, but even if you knew what tomorrow brings, that doesn't mean that he still wasn't hoping for. Like he still would have had that hope to one day this prison be released.
I suppose.
So
yeah, because that's how he reacts.
Right. So I think it was that hope for what could be that led him to, like, yeah, tomorrow will probably be the same, but, like, because of I've got hope. Again, I'm maybe I'm drawing straws here, but because I think the movie would have ended a long time ago because we would just see a Phil who laid in bed every day over and over again. Because, like, at some point, like, if he didn't think it was ever going to end, he would have stopped trying.
He did.
Right. And he knew that wasn't successful. So instead of trying to kill himself, he would just lay in bed. And, like, it would just, I don't.
He did that before he tried to kill himself. He'd wake up and smash the clock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right, and I guess we don't know if he stayed in bed or if he got out because
that's fair.
Some cutscenes and stuff like.
Well, we also do know that he spent 6 months in his bed trying to throw cards into a hat.
That's true. So yeah, it's. I think that the hope for this to eventually end is what allowed him to be like, you know what, even if I give all my money and tomorrow I wake up poor because I do get my second day, I get my next day. It will have been worth it because that all those expenses doesn't trump the idea of having a new day, you know? Again, maybe
I think my impression was, and you might be correct, you might be exactly what Harold Ramis had in mind. My impression was that he had accepted his lot in life. I will repeat this day forever. That's it. And he went through several phases in processing and accepting that, but eventually he did come to just an acceptance of it and decided that in that acceptance, what he would enjoy most doing with that time was making the lives of everybody in town better for that day. Mm-hmm. You know, at first, almost 2 or 3 days in, it's all about what can I get out of this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. Can I spur off that a little bit? So In the course of the film, again, this is IMDb again. I don't venture too far from my facts. We see Phil endure all 5 stages of denial.
Right.
So first denial, then anger, then bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So like,
I feel like denial being a stage of denial is like having the definition in the description.
I agree. But so I think part of that is like, it's cool. We do get to see him go through, because like the first one is, what is denial, anger, bargaining, depression? No. So our anger, bargaining, depression, etc. So denial is the first one. Sorry.
No, that's the stages of grief.
Stages of grief. You're right. Okay. You're right. There's a
we are unqualified to produce our own show.
Man. Too bad. So yeah,
people at home were screaming at their phones. Yeah. It's grief, you idiots.
So he goes out and he gets behind, he gets in a car with a drunk driver. Like then he's like, wait, right. If this does repeat, then it's like, then you see him be outlanders. Like you see him do different things, which I appreciated that interpretation of that. Just seeing someone go through these things, because like, I assume I'm never going to, get experience
trapped
this.
in a time loop.
Granted, maybe it has happened to someone. We just haven't heard about it yet because they're still in it. But to my knowledge, no one's ever done this in real life.
It's entirely possible that right now we're in a time loop, and this is like the 35th year of us making this episode.
But wouldn't we remember?
No, we wouldn't. It's somebody else's time loop. We're just here.
Oh.
Huh.
My head hurts.
Really makes you think.
Yeah. Dang it. So just, and then, because like, then you see him.
Forget simulation theory.
Yeah. He goes to gluttony. Then he goes to sexual promiscuity, or
he goes there right away.
Right. And let's be real. I mean, like, there's probably some things like, okay, if you had like this immortality, like there would probably be some things that you would maybe not actually attempt, but like you would contemplate. And like, just because we're human, we have a nature of sins. Like we have this desire to not do things that are right sometimes. Like, so like it depicted things that we probably all would mentally at least contemplate, whether we would put it into motion or not. We would go, oh yeah, I'd probably speed and try to get chased by like I'd probably try some of those things too.
Sure.
Like, I'm too much of a wimp. I don't know if I'd ever get to the point of like trying to off myself, but some of the other things I'm like, I
don't know. I think you'd get desperate enough after a while. Yeah. The same day every day, you'd get desperate.
It's heavy, man.
Because going into this, he is egocentric. He is the epitome of egocentrism.
Right.
In fact, I have it here written. What's her character's name? Rita.
Rita
says to him in the diner, I know you're egocentric. It's your defining characteristic. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, I think even him, like, if you were to ask him, would you ever contemplate suicide? He'd be like, of course not. I love my life. I'm great. I'm the... he greatly overestimates his own celebrity, right? Mm-hmm. Being the weatherman at a small local news station. But... I think that your estimation that you would never get that desperate, like I think the evidence from the movie, I think that you would. I think anybody would.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I've never been in that position, but like, I have a hard time putting myself in that position. But yeah, I mean, you're not 30. I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I do have a note here, again, from IMDb. Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis both said that they avoided some topics of this scenario. Essentially, murder, torture, and other things like that. But they do touch on suicide. They do touch on, like, I don't know if it'd be considered rape. But he does manipulate a woman for sex.
Very much manipulates a woman.
But, like, it is in a way where she... can see, it's gray, like it's gray and gross either way, but like I don't know how you would define that, but so it does touch on some of those dark things, but they said they intentionally did stay away from murder and torture,
and you couldn't even say that it was fraud either,
right?
Because he actually did know those things,
right? But I mean, he did.
Oh, actually, no. I guess it was fraud with her because
he faked being a class student with her.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
he did Ryerson on her.
Right. It was false information. So it's like that's pretty dark.
That's true. Well, and then also you have later the first time he nearly gets Rita to bed.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, no means no.
right. Yeah, he did get a little handsy, and I think
he got way handsy.
And I think he knew that the repercussions were minimal. Like,
That's true.
Yeah, it's heavy. Like, yeah, it's weird to see that depicted, but like,
as much as I hate the idea of contextualizing a rapist,
right? But I think it is a. I don't know how to say this. I don't think it was far off from like someone who didn't have any boundaries.
Sure.
Like how someone would have acted, like, you know, like
100%.
So
the Harold Ramis, when he wrote the screenplay, he started from the premise of, I want to make a movie about somebody that's immortal. Mm-hmm. How does this affect them?
Right.
You don't play Dungeons and Dragons, right?
I have a couple times with you, actually. Back in your apartment, apartment days.
I forgot this.
Do you remember? I mean, this was years ago.
I do remember.
But this. I mean, and this is the like I couldn't get into it.
Sure.
I enjoy it for what it is, but I couldn't get into it. I couldn't commit to it.
Right. That was a big thing too.
I couldn't commit to it
at the time.
But I appreciate it for what it is, but it's not my type of game.
The reason I bring it up is elves are effectively immortal. And so half elves, if you're half elf, half human, that are raised among humans, or elves that are raised among humans, have this trait called forlorn, where they look like they're 30 and all their friends have grown and died twice. Mm. And how that affects the psyche.
Yeah.
And so while he wasn't exploring that idea specifically, he came to it through vampires. He's also not the first person to kind of...
Oh, so this is fictional.
What?
Because you said there's vampires, so this is all fictional stuff, right? At first I thought you were talking about something real.
No, elves aren't real.
Sorry, that was just being
Have you ever tried DMT?
Because I was believing you up until you said vampires. I'm like, wait, vampires aren't real.
So he was sitting in the theater waiting on a movie, reading an Anne Rice book. And so he was considering the immortality of vampires.
Yeah.
He's like, how would immortality affect a person? Especially a person who is trapped in like this arrested development, like they're an adult, but they act like a impetuous child, which that's Phil. Would it cause them to grow? And so at first, the original screenplay, it was going to be an immortal man. And he realized that budget was way too high to do period pieces for several different period pieces.
Oh, because they were going to span a huge amount of time
exactly
in one day.
And it would also probably, if you think about it, if you're an immortal human, it doesn't just span eras, it also is all over the globe.
Yeah.
You travel a lot.
Yeah.
So he, with a blizzard, made it locked to a tight, small community of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And with an arbitrary time loop, he cut out a lot of production costs, which I think it's a brilliant move.
Yeah. They did like all the scenes at the Groundhog Day. They filmed all that in one day.
Oh, really?
They like everything that was outside. They filmed those scenes in the same day. All the Ned scenes were same day filmed,
back to back. He just kept changing his pants,
and the dialogue changed. Yeah, but yeah.
That's insane.
All the outdoor scenes were filmed in. No, not all of them together.
Right.
Every scene that took place
all the
outside
Ned scenes were filmed on the same day.
Same day, yeah.
Yeah,
correct.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. There's a few other concepts that have kind of attacked this idea of loop or immortality.
Isn't there that one movie? It's like a teen chick flick or something.
Oh, the Wolverine.
Yeah. Yeah, Hugh Jackman. Yeah. I mean, well, technically, yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that. He is immortal, yeah. But I can't think of the name of it. But he doesn't grow old. But like he's had multiple love relationships, and they've all grown and died.
Time Traveler's Wife.
I have never seen that. But like, this is a movie like back from our childhood. Man, I can't think of it. But I know this concept's been used in
Benjamin Button.
No, because that's a different concept. This is an old guy that turns young.
One of my
because that guy changes ages.
Yeah.
For 33 years, Bill Murray did not change an age. So in the movie I'm thinking about, this guy also didn't.
Because you said Bill Murray and not Phil Connors, I thought you meant Bill Murray. I was like, no, he kind of aged ungracefully. In fact.
I can't think of the movie, but there are multiple movies that touch on this type of concept.
I wrote down a couple that I thought of while watching the movie, and these two are very, very different, but kind of are looking at the same issue from two different angles. Mm-hmm. So one is 50 First Dates, where instead of everybody's repeating the same day and one person's aware of it, everybody's lives goes on and this one person's trapped in the same day.
Right.
And the hurdle that Adam Sandler has to overcome to make her fall in love with him every day, and not every day it works.
Right.
And the other movie I thought of was Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise.
I have not seen that.
It's good. It does provide an explanation for what is causing it.
Aliens?
Yes.
Figured.
And it's really good, man.
Okay.
And I've long wanted to have like an Edge of Tomorrow video game where like you have to beat it in one shot. And every time you die, you just go right back to the beginning. I probably wouldn't ever beat the game.
That'd be the most frustrating game.
Yeah. It'd be really good for like a Dark Souls type game. Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
A series of really hard games.
I play lots of games, you can tell.
A series of really frustratingly difficult games. But yeah, so there's Edge of Tomorrow, 50 First Dates came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I've already mentioned Invincible in past episodes. There's a character in Invincible named Mr. Immortal, and he is immortal. And in one issue, one of the comics, they kind of dive into his past, and he's actually a caveman. And has lived this entire time, and it kind of takes snapshots through history of him doing different, like being different people through history.
Yeah,
and he was Abraham Lincoln, like,
wow.
And so when he gets shot in the head, like he dies, and they mourn his death, and then like 3 days later he's alive again, but like now he has to change his entire identity and be a dead guy.
That's fun,
and be a new guy. And he also had this issue of, I've been alive for thousands of years, and my I've loved several times, like once in a lifetime loves hundreds of times now, and just the range of emotion of doing everything just for my own benefit to I'm gonna make the world a better place to I'm gonna settle down and have kids, and like all of that several times over. That this movie made me think of that as well.
I just googled it because it was going to bother me if I didn't come up with it. There's Adeline.
Never seen it. Never heard of it.
There's a concept. I watched it years ago when it came out, and it's about, I forget which characters, but there's a character that doesn't age and there's a character that does.
Sure.
Then the one I was thinking about, it came up in the search, Tuck Everlasting.
Haven't seen that either.
Okay, the boy doesn't age.
Okay,
and so
is that the one from our childhood?
Yes. But it's a young woman meets and falls in love with a young man who is part of a family of immortals. So, wow. I don't remember the concept. I just remember knowing that he lives.
Yeah,
and
she does not
do the math.
But she's not immortal.
Do the math.
This also reminds me of a movie. Now that we're talking about movies with weird like loop effects, there's of course Butterfly Effect.
I've never seen it.
So Butterfly Effect, he has the power through journaling. He's journaling about his childhood. And if he journals something differently than it happened, his entire past actually gets rewritten. And he is updated to the current day because of what he changed. So that's an interesting teasing out of the same concept.
Yeah.
And this one's a bit of a running joke with my wife and I. She watched this movie without me, wanted me to watch it, and so she gave me the elevator pitch, but okay. I was not in the mood really to watch a movie, but the elevator pitch made me laugh so hard, I was like, all right, fine. So her pitch was this. She's like, there's this guy, and he falls in love with a girl, and because of his dad, he can travel through time, and there's a lot of problems that it causes, and a lot of loose ends, but they tie them all up by the end of it. That was the elevator pitch.
That's fantastic.
And I was like, I'm in. Let's watch it.
Sign me up.
So it's become a running joke of a lot of loose ends, but they tie it up by the end of it.
Yeah.
That movie's called About Time.
Oh, never heard of it.
So let me give you a slightly
more in depth
elevator pitch.
It is on this list. I see About Time right here, but I've never heard of it.
It's terrific. It's really, really great. So he is able to travel back in time. It's a gift inherited by the oldest male in his family every time.
Okay.
So he's the oldest male. He's able to travel back in time. When he does, anything that happened between then hasn't happened anymore.
Oh, wow.
Right? So he travels back in time and he just relives from that point forward.
He can never fast forward. He can only rewind and do stuff over again.
That's right.
Wow.
So, when he meets the girl that he really likes, he redoes that date a bunch of times, trying to get it just right to get her to go on a date.
Okay.
And then like sometimes it'll be years before he travels back to undo something, and there's implications for that.
Wow.
It's really
that isn't. So you'd recommend that movie?
I would.
Liked it?
Yeah, About Time. It's linked below. I think it's a great movie.
I'm intrigued. And then one more on the list that I think is worth mentioning that I've seen.
All of these will be linked below.
Jack with Robin Williams.
Oh yeah.
Which is the opposite of Case of Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
So Jack is a boy who physically grows older quickly.
Yeah.
And Benjamin Button is an older man who grows younger.
Yeah.
But Jack is one of those, and also one of those movies where it's like it's funny.
I only remember,
but by the end you're emotional because this movie's been out forever, so I'm going to spoil some of it. Like
he dies of old age in like
he's
the
an
sixth
old
grade.
man. He's an old man when he graduates high school.
Oh, that's right.
So he does graduate, but he's geriatric by the time he graduates high school.
All I remember from that movie is him lying about his age to buy pornos for his friends in a treehouse.
Well, he didn't have to lie about it. He just walked in and got it because he looked the age.
He did lie about it.
Not verbally. Just with his body language.
He body language.
But that movie is great. Like it's the same concept. Like it's a heavy topic put through a comic lens.
Yeah.
And you just go, man. Like I feel challenged about some of my thoughts, but I also laughed the whole time. Like it's great. Robin Williams is a gem.
One other kind of sad thing. Couched in dark stuff. No, dark thing couched in comedy.
Chocolate covered cherries.
Yeah. Correct. No, I recently got I was at the doctor's office and I tested positive for reverse Benjamin Button disease. So
how'd you handle that?
I'm just gonna keep trucking, day by day.
I mean, there's not much you can do, but
grow old at the normal rate.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I'm gonna pray for you.
Thank you.
If you guys want to send a prayer in the comments.
We're also taking donations to research possible cures for reverse Benjamin Button disease.
Buy me a coffee.
Buy me a coffee at silverscreenbrasses.com.
It'll all go towards for all the proceeds from this episode will go towards Nelson's
reverse Benjamin Button disease.
Yeah. But we'll carry on.
Yeah,
we'll carry your legacy on.
There's a line I really liked in this movie, which rings true for me a lot. Rita says, "You can't plan a day like this," and he says, "Well, you can. It just takes a lot of work." And I laugh really hard at that because I have a line that I say, and usually I say this to women with very high expectations about spontaneity in their dating relationships, which is it takes a lot of planning to be spontaneous. And also, of all the women I know who want more spontaneity, I don't know a single one who also is okay with surprises.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I want you to be spontaneous,
but don't surprise me.
Don't surprise me.
Yeah, I need a heads up.
It takes a lot of planning to be spontaneous.
Oh, man.
Luckily, I have a very understanding wife who, whenever I try to plan something, if she starts asking questions, I'm like, look, I'm trying. She's like, okay, I'll just let you take control here.
That's fun. Yeah. Do you have the quote on there about when they're sitting at the diner and they're talking about how he thinks he could be a god?
Yeah, I do.
Like, do you have that quote? Can you read that quote for me?
Yeah. So he says, maybe I'm a god, and she says, "You're God." Well, he's not the god, but a god. And he kind of talks a little bit more, and then she says, based on her experience of 12 years of Catholic school, he's not a god. Now, I don't think that really makes her an authority on the subject, but that aside, he then says, maybe the real God has been around so long that he knows everything. And I thought that was a really interesting concept to approach the omniscience of God.
Yeah.
He's all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful, and
from this
but
lens,
exists outside of time.
Yeah.
So I think that looking at God the way it's pitched here is an inaccurate and incorrect view of God.
Right.
But it is an interesting way to evaluate the idea. Like so similarly, when you hear people say, "Well, why would God allow this terrible situation to happen to me, or put me through this terrible situation, or not allow me to experience X thing that I want to experience?" And it's kind of like as a parent when you tell your kid, "Don't touch the hot stove."
Yeah.
Right. Like I know more than you. I've experienced more than you.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you anamorphize God in ways that you shouldn't, it still provides somewhat of a lens to explain why this is the way that it is. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, no, I just thought that was a good topic for discussion there because like
Anthropomorphize, sorry, not anamorphize.
that was
Animorphs is the books from when we were kids.
turning to animals.
Turn God into a cool
cheetah.
dog or something.
He'd probably be a dove, right? Or a lion. He'd be a lion. If you're going C.S. Lewis, he'd be a lion.
He'd be a lion. You ain't lying.
Wah, wah, wah.
One of these days, you'll be lying
oh gosh.
to me. What's the line from VeggieTales?
Oh, it's been a minute
They
since
toss
I
him
watched
in the lion's
VeggieTales.
den.
Yeah.
Thanks for the pizza.
The bunny. Ooh. Anyways, I just thought that's one of the more profound conversations in the movie. Of just like, wait, well, I gotta think on that for a second, and just, and then that's what it's exactly how you explained it. Like it didn't necessarily like change my theology about like, oh wait, maybe that is how maybe God is just.
If your theology was changed by Groundhog Day, Jeff, we have deeper conversations.
It wasn't Groundhog Day. It was Bill Murray. It was bigger than just this movie, man. No, but just that concept of like, have I really thought about how God knows? I mean, just made me question or just challenge my beliefs on things, and I just appreciate that, and obviously, I mean, just to clarify, I've never experienced anything like this. I think I've stated that already, but like,
never had déjà vu.
I have, I have, and I can't explain déjà vu. Do you get angry with déjà vu? It freaks me out.
I get it pretty regularly.
Really?
And I can get it for extended periods of time where like it'll be like 10 minutes of like all of this feels like I've already experienced it.
Do you have an explanation for it? Like I don't get it because like it's when I experience it, which maybe other people like, it's vivid. Yeah. Like I literally catch myself in that moment. I'm looking around. I'm like, this is weird. Like it's like physically I get chills. Like I've been here before. Yeah. And even if it's a place I've been in this moment before. It's weird. Like there is something about it that it's
unsettling.
Yes.
There's two things that I think might be happening. One,
aliens.
In the moment you're not very awake. So you're a little bit more tired, and so your subconscious is more active.
Mm.
The second thing, and it's tied to the first one, when you are dreaming, your brain is processing, right?
Right.
So for me, déjà vu almost always happens in situations where I know these people, I know this location. There's not new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's possible, maybe even likely, that I've already processed this plausible future in a dream that I don't remember, but my subconscious is aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I experience it, like I'm tired, my subconscious is more engaged. And it's like, hey, you remember this? We did this a couple nights ago, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think's going on. But maybe DMT elves.
Yeah, for real.
So
the elves be crazy.
Yeah. You know how those machine elves be.
Yeah. So no, it's just interesting. Like I don't know. I can't imagine what thoughts I would go through my head if I was reliving the day over and over again. Like, he probably went through all the questions of like, okay, is this something I did? Do I have to do something exactly right to get out of this trap?
Right.
And then other thoughts would be like, okay, maybe I did something right, and now I'm literally a king for a day. like in a sense, like he's not a king for all time, but he's a king for all the time that he exists, you know? So there's this idea, like maybe he, like in this reality, he literally, depending on how much he could do in a 24-hour day, like he could span outside of Puxatawny and he could probably do some bigger impactful things if he wanted to in that day. Yeah. You know, like, so to a sense, like there probably is some natural, or man, I don't want to say natural, but like maybe it would happen naturally. Just these thoughts of like, I've got a lot of power here. I have some godlike power. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's out of the way for him to like it's not irrational, even though it's a fictional movie. Like it's not irrational for that to be a concept that someone would have if they were experiencing something like this.
I think it's also a result of his already explained egocentrism.
Yeah.
Right? Like earlier in the movie, he doesn't just say, I am a weatherman. He says, I make the weather.
Right. He did. I make the weather. Yeah. When he was talking to on the road there. Yeah.
So I think this is part of his egocentrism. I don't think a more rooted and humble person would come to the conclusion that they're God.
Yeah.
A God.
Yeah, it was just I enjoyed that dialogue and some of the thought that came from it. Now, it's not a time-based movie, and I know we've referenced a lot of movies in this episode, but I've been enjoying making these connections. Bruce Almighty.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like it's not a movie about time, but like it's a guy who gets, if you guys haven't seen it, it's Jim Carrey. He gets the powers from Morgan Freeman God, and it's also intertwined with a comedy based movie, but like some heavy topics, like it's and just this idea of like, what do we do when we like it just, and I've also found that very interesting, and I related some of because I've seen that movie multiple times, and relating it to this one, there was a lot of things I'm like, yeah, what does a guy do when he gets godlike powers?
Yeah,
he
makes his girlfriend's breasts slightly larger.
Yeah,
and then floods India.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't like about Bruce Almighty, and I know that's not the point of this episode.
It's not on the top 250, so the chances of us talking about it in the future are slim. So yeah, it's okay.
He pulls the moon closer to Earth to impress his girlfriend, thereby flooding India.
Yeah.
And then later you find out that he only had control over Manhattan. It's like, no, he pulled the moon closer and flooded India.
Yeah, there's some minor plot holes in that movie. I think it's more of an allegory.
But at least there's anal dwelling butt monkeys.
Oh man, classic. And then I'll tell you what, and that's one of the few movies that has a follow-up sequel that is just as good.
I strongly disagree.
Oh no, I thought Evan Almighty was great. Not Bruce Almighty great, but just beneath. I thought
the weird thing is like it had already been done. Modern day Noah had already been done.
Right, but not in
Bruce Almighty.
Not in a comedic sense.
Yeah, but I feel like I didn't care for it.
Okay.
I don't think it's Steve Carell's strongest film by
No, and I would absolutely agree with you. But
in fact, I liked Steve Carell in Bruce Almighty more than in Evan Almighty.
Do you like jazz? That's a fun line. Oh man.
Isn't that from B Movie?
No. Where he's Bruce is the weatherman.
Almighty.
Yeah.
You like jazz?
He's playing the trumpet, and then he gives Evan the middle finger while playing the fictitious trumpet.
That's true.
Yeah, like I would have loved to have seen a Jim Carrey cameo in that movie in Evan Almighty. I would have loved to have them connected a little bit more.
They couldn't have budgeted that.
No. But yeah. So that watching this movie made me think of some of the thoughts that I had watching Evan Almighty.
Sure.
And, yeah.
There's a lot of little things in this movie that can easily be missed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One that I have here is on one of the many days where he is filming his news segment.
Yes.
He yells loudly, "They used to pull the hog out and eat it. You're hypocrites." So I looked it up. Not true.
Shoot.
That has never been a part of Groundhog Day.
Man, can you imagine that? That'd have been cool. Pennsylvania would have just gotten really cool all of a sudden.
Apparently, it's a Pennsylvania Dutch tradition, and it comes from Germany. And I don't know the German word for badger, but it's called Badger Day. And there's not badgers in America, so they went with groundhogs.
While we're talking about the critter itself, Bill Murray in the chase scene where he kidnapped the beaver, the groundhog, and he got his hand severely bit. Severe enough that he had to get some shots and stuff while doing that. And so I don't know when they filmed it in the progression of the whole movie. So I don't know if it was closer to the end or at the beginning.
Yeah, it must have been the end because they drive right off the cliff.
That's true. It's a very good point. Yeah. But
the last scene they shot.
It's true. Like you can only get one shot of that.
We only got one opportunity at this, guys.
Man,
get it right.
but I thought that was where was I going with this?
Interesting.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I had another point. Where did it? Oh no, I lost. What was I saying?
Oh, sorry. Groundhog bit his hand.
Groundhog bit. Yeah. So he got injured, and I don't know if it stunted some of the filming or if they had to delay it, but he did get injured by that. And there were some things that they intentionally didn't do with the groundhog itself.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want it to be similar to Caddyshack.
With the gopher.
Because they said they
when I saw the groundhog sitting in the truck cab with him, I'm like,
it was very similar. Because I guess they either filmed or had set to film scenes of him going into the groundhog hole and pulling it out, and they're like, so they intentionally did not do that because of Groundhog Day, which they the other movie I just mentioned, but I've actually never seen that movie either.
I have, but it's been a long time.
Caddyshack, there it is. Caddyshack.
I usually avoid watching film analysis before we do these episodes.
Okay.
But I know that this is a movie that is that has brought in a lot of film analysis. So I watched a little bit.
Okay. Tell me for people and me who don't know, what is a film analysis? What do you mean? Like not just a review, but like more in depth?
Yeah, discussing like the way certain shots set things up.
Like production notes and stuff.
Well, sometimes, but also what we do is film analysis.
Okay.
What's the movie trying to do?
Wow, this whole time?
Yeah, I tricked you into being smart. And we are unqualified. So one of the things that I saw somebody else say, and again, I avoid this because I don't want to just regurgitate what other people have said on this.
Right.
Mostly I want to see like, are other people seeing the same things I'm seeing? And one thing I saw was that when you're confronted with this situation, you've really got two options, which is to pursue a goal until failure or to indulge yourself until you're bored. And he does both. And oftentimes, one leads to the other.
Mm-hmm.
He pursues Rita until the point of failure and boredom.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was an interesting insight. One thing that really stuck out to me with this movie, right? Because he starts being just completely self-indulgent. And then he moves to being depressed and then suicidal.
Yeah.
Hopeless. And then there's a really big pivotal shift when suddenly he's like, you know what? I am going to go out of my way to make the best of this. Yeah. And to make everybody else's life better.
Something happens, right? He
has a great day with Rita.
Well, when does he see the guy have the heart attack?
This is
because
that's before he has a great day with Rita.
Right. So
sure.
because I was thinking the heart attack was one of the first pivotal moments of like, wait, I can save someone.
Yeah.
Like, so it didn't because even when you're thinking about him and Rita's relationship, there's still an aspect of that is self elevating or self intentional. You know, like self-indulgent. When he's out to save someone.
Yeah,
he has nothing to gain from that, especially if it's a life that he may have to do day after day after day. Like it's like that act for me was one like, oh, this is a turn.
Yeah,
he's trying to because like he has nothing to benefit by saving this guy.
I think that's right after the second. So there's like 3 big days with Rita, and in my mind they kind of mark the end of each act.
Yeah.
So the first one is like actually several days mashed together that ends with the slap montage.
Yeah.
Then he gets depressed and suicidal, and then has a really great day with her but he's pretty broken, and she makes him like she helps him kind of see the world through a different lens. And then I think is when we have the homeless man.
Okay.
And then the third day with Rita is the day that is his final day in Groundhog Day. But those 3 phases that he goes through reminded me a lot of, and I can never remember what it is, and I think I mentioned it in our Into the Wild episode. But there's an essay I read when I was younger of some ancient old Greek philosopher. I thought it was Socrates, but Socrates, I found out, never wrote anything. We only know about him from other people. I thought maybe it was Plato that wrote it, and I can't find any evidence of Plato. It looks like
I've got some in my nursery upstairs.
I think it might have been Aristotle, but there's an essay to the effect of life is pretty much meaningless and useless. With a subtitle of life is quite valuable and useful if you know how to use it. I remember reading it, talking to my dad about it, saying how cool this was, and his response was just like, yeah, that is cool. You should read Ecclesiastes. I went reading Ecclesiastes. I was like, oh man, this guy said it so much better and like 400 years earlier. And I think that this movie is a very ecclesiastical.
Yeah.
Phil has the means to get anything he wants, except for Rita in bed. But pretty much any of his desires can be satisfied. He's figured out how to,
without having to manipulate to get that information out over multiple days.
Well, yeah, but even still, like,
because some of the stuff he ends up achieving is only because he's repeated. So there are some things that he couldn't achieve.
That comes in the third phase, right? So like the first phase is total self-indulgence,
right?
And then he gets bored of that, and after getting bored of that, depression, suicidality, And when he realizes he can't kill himself, that's when he starts growing. He doesn't start taking piano lessons until after he's already tried to kill himself several times.
Right. But what I was saying is like, but in those days, like he still interacts with Rita and the cameraman. Like, it's like he's still learning things.
Sure.
But I guess, but I do get what you're saying. And I agree with you. Like the intentionality is not there of him going, wait, I'm going to change this. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. For a lot of this movie, I think the main message of this movie, which is be generous, be selfless, invest in those around you. That's where true life comes from and true happiness comes from. That's Ecclesiastes through and through. I don't know Harold Ramis's religious convictions.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that either.
Or political convictions, but this is fairly in line
I know he's dealt with a lot of ghosts.
Is he afraid of them? Because I'm not.
Had to fit Ghostbusters in there somehow. Yeah.
So I saw Harold Ramis, and my brain was like, "Oh, Sam Raimi."
Yeah.
But no, different guy. So yeah, I think this movie is very ecclesiastical.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I would absolutely agree. I think this was I'm bummed that I hadn't seen this movie before. Same with my reaction with Into the Wild. Like it's one of those movies I'm like, maybe Into the Wild would have affected me as a teenager. This movie, I don't know if I don't know if I would have gotten hit with some of these nuances as I do now, but like Into the Wild would have. This movie though, as an adult, going like, yeah, every day is valuable and it is what I make it.
Well, let me pause you there though.
Yeah, you can pause. I'll let you.
Do you think that you would have gotten that in casually watching this movie as opposed to doing what we do?
Ooh.
Because I don't think you would.
You're talking about Into the Wild or this?
This. Into the Wild, I think you get it.
Yeah, I would have. Yeah,
I think you could very easily watch the movie and not digest any of the message.
I think me personally, if I were to watch this movie yesterday, which I did, Sunday. I watched this Sunday.
If I were to have watched it yesterday, and I did,
I watched this Sunday because we were supposed to record this yesterday. If I would have watched it without knowing I was going to be discussing it later, there are still things that I would have sat with.
Yeah.
Because even movie like there, I've shared this with you, Nelson, and I'll share this with the listeners. Like, I love movies. Granted,
really?
you as listeners, like you guys know, like
we're movie likers.
There's a lot of things I haven't seen. But like, I'm not saying I'm a movie expert, but like I love watching movies and stuff. And I told you, Nelson, as you know, going into this, I was like, I don't want this podcast to ever ruin my experience of watching a movie.
Right.
And it hasn't. It's definitely improved the way I've watched movies. But like I was still entertained by this movie, even though I was also looking intentionally.
There was a couple points where I was enjoying the movie so much, just like because it's a easily digested comedy.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, I need to be writing down things.
Right. So like, but there are other movies that I've watched that we haven't discussed. Since we've been doing the podcast, I've watched other movies that I hadn't seen for the first time.
You're watching other movies now?
Yeah, I'm seeing other movies. I didn't know we were exclusive.
I didn't know we were in an open movie relationship.
I'm
seeing other movies
I'm
on the
movie
side?
Polygamist. Right? Did I use that right? I don't use that term ever because monogamous is one.
Yeah.
I'm a movie polygamist.
No, you're like a polyfilmist.
Polyfilmist. There we go. But no, so I've seen other movies where I've had to sit with some stuff for a while, like
polygraphy, polygraphy.
Get myself in some trouble there. But yeah, so I think I would have maybe not some of the things that you've brought up in this discussion, but there are some things that I have thought that I was thinking about before we've even talked. So like, yeah, I think of the discussion definitely helps. I've enjoyed you and our guests talking about some things that I was unaware of, but I do pick up things as I watch movies more and more intently. Yeah. Cool. So watching this, yeah, I would have.
Nice. Listeners, if you've experienced that, write in. We want to hear about it. How is your consumption of movie changed?
Yeah.
Any other big takeaways or thoughts from this movie?
Yeah, huge takeaway here. The guy, the boy who fell out of the tree.
Yeah. That he caught?
He turned out to be, and he grew up to be a news reporter. So I thought that was a fun fact.
That is fun.
I've got his name here, but you can look it up in IMDb.
I won't.
But yeah, he grew up to be a newscaster. So I thought that was fun. I had a note here, just kind of relating it to a previous film. We did It's a Wonderful Life last month.
That's right.
Actually, 2 months ago, because this is airing in February. It starts snowing the moment Phil gets his life back on track. The same way it did for George Bailey once his life started again.
Yeah.
Because the blizzard hits, he goes to bed and it hadn't snowed yet. But then when he wakes up, the day of there's snow on the ground, because when the day repeats, it's not snowy.
I thought that scene felt more like Scrooge.
Right. Wait,
in A Christmas Carol. He opens up the blinds.
Oh, yeah.
What day is it? It's Christmas.
But it is a little confusing now that I'm reading it out loud and talking to you. Like when they're on the highway in the traffic jam, there is snow there.
Yeah.
So that's as I was saying out loud, I'm like, this doesn't quite work. But I guess maybe in that specific town, because they could have drove a little bit. But either way,
there is a connection.
There's a connection there too.
There is a connection in that he specifically mentioned A Christmas Story when talking about, like, I want this to be a movie that everybody watches at a specific time of year, like A Christmas Story.
Mm-hmm.
What's it? Not A Christmas Story. What's the one that you were just talking about?
Christmas Carol? It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm looking at a picture of Bill Murray next to Andie MacDowell, him in 2018 and her in 2017. She is aged a lot better than him. He is not aged gracefully.
Let me take a gander. Yeah. What's the age? Let me look up the age difference.
Yeah.
I'll do that for you.
You pull up Andie MacDowell. I got Bill Murray here. He's 72.
She's loading.
I bet she is.
Let's see here. Oh, no. I hit the wrong button. No, go back.
She's 64.
Wow, you're quick. Yeah,
that's even after me looking at different things and waiting for you. Yeah, so he's 6 years older than her, but the age difference in the pictures we looked at, that's not 6 years.
No.
That looked like decades.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
She was great.
Yeah, she's great in this.
I do want to say,
what's she known for?
Multiplicity was the other one that I knew her in.
Yeah. Apparently, her breakout role was Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
She then starred in a series of films. Green Card, haven't heard of it. Groundhog Day, never heard of it. Shortcuts, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Michael, Multiplicity, and The Muse.
Oh, Michael with John Travolta?
Yeah. She had supporting roles in Beauty Shop, Footloose, the 2011 Footloose, though. Magic Mike XXL, Love After Love.
Really?
Or not, yeah.
Interesting.
So I think that the movies I probably know her most from are going to be Multiplicity and Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
I've seen both those several times. I really like Multiplicity.
Multiplicity is great. Steve. Pizza Steve. So another actor I didn't know was in the movie, because I didn't watch the trailer before I watched this movie.
Oh, okay.
Because I had already, I know the concept. I don't need to watch the trailer.
Yeah.
Chris Elliott.
Who was that?
So he was the camera guy. Larry.
Okay. Yeah,
he's from, have you ever watched Schitt's Creek?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
he's
the guy.
rolling shit. Yeah. And I think he's great. And he's also from SNL, which is, where Bill Murray came from. Yeah.
And then there's a guy in it who's a bit actor who did a ton of stuff in the 90s, but never really made a name for himself until he was in White Collar. Did you ever see White Collar?
I did not. I'm familiar with it, but I did not.
TBS, I think. There was a show called White Collar.
No, it was USA.
USA.
It was USA.
But White Collar Crime.
Yeah.
And it was the main character's criminal best friend. And he's in a ton of things. And he's in this for a brief period. He works at the news station and introduces Bill Murray's character to his new producer, Rita.
Oh.
And so he's got like a good minute on screen.
Yeah.
But not a named character. And he had a lot of roles like that through the years.
Interesting. The guy that Phil runs into in the hall every morning.
Yeah.
Santa from Home Alone.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. And then he's also he's Buckman in Down Periscope. Have you ever seen Down Periscope?
Once.
Kelsey Grammer.
Once. I love Kelsey Grammer.
He's Buckman. He's one of the Navy men, the seamen.
I don't think you're allowed to say that.
That's what they're called. And I knew I recognized him. I was thinking at first he was the guy from Jurassic Park who stole the shaving cream canister, but different guy.
No, that's Newman.
That's Newman from Seinfeld. But but yeah. So I did figure out where I knew him from. But
this movie does share cast and some production team actually with a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one movie it doesn't share any cast or production talent with.
I have no idea where you're going with this, Nelson.
That's A Clockwork Orange.
You fooled me.
Now, A Clockwork Orange did not come up organically in our conversation. Off the top of my head,
We
I
tried
really
so hard.
don't see. No, we didn't. We
No,
didn't.
we
We didn't try it hard at all. But I don't see any correlation with this with A Clockwork Orange.
No.
I don't think it has much overlap. However, ChatGPT came in a pinch to tell us how this movie has thematic similarities with A Clockwork Orange. So, A Clockwork Orange, this is reading directly from what ChatGPT told me.
Okay.
A Clockwork Orange and Groundhog Day both explore the theme of free will and determinism. A Clockwork Orange deals with the question of whether someone can truly be held responsible for their actions if they have been conditioned to behave a certain way.
Oh.
While Groundhog Day examines the idea of a person being trapped in a time loop and forced to relive the same day over and over again until they learn the lesson they need to move on. Both stories also deal with the idea of redemption and the possibility of change.
Wow.
I think we're out of a job, Jeff.
Yeah. How did we miss that? Man.
It's amazing what you won't find when you're not looking for it.
Yeah. Wow. Profound. Oh, man.
Hold on. I'm going to do something. We might end up cutting this.
Okay.
But I think we owe it to Brad to see how is Groundhog Day like Babe Pig in the City.
Let's do it. I love it.
Out of appreciation for my brother-in-law, Brad, who requested that we bring up Babe Pig in the City more often.
Yes.
ChatGPT tells me that Groundhog Day and Babe Pig in the City do not have any obvious thematic similarities. Groundhog Day is a comedy drama film that explores the idea of a person being trapped in a time loop and forced to relive the same day over and over again until
like
they
you've
learn
said
the
that
lesson
before.
they need to move on. While Babe Pig in the City is a children's film that follows the story of a pig named Babe who travels to the city with his farmer to compete in sheep herding contests. While both films may explore the idea of perseverance and determination, they are vastly different in terms of genre, tone, and themes.
Are pigs mammals?
They are.
Are groundhogs mammals?
They are.
Connection.
And hog is another name for pig.
Wow. Chad's out of a job, Nelson.
Yeah. And Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania is a city, probably.
Yeah.
Let's check that real quick.
You can probably drive from there to New York. Well, I don't know if New York's the city that they go to in Babe. It's been a while since I've seen Babe Pig in the City.
Oh. Unfortunately, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania is a borough, not a city.
I quit.
But yeah, we found similarities that even advanced AI couldn't find. So
from now on, it's just AI.
yeah,
Lost all advancedness. Well, Nels, this was a good movie. I'm happy we did this one. This was exciting. I love it when it's a movie I've never experienced before. So I very much enjoyed this episode. Got some questions to round it up. Are you ready? Okay. These are not new questions, so this will not be a pop quiz. However, your answers, I assume, will be different from previous movies. First one.
and believe it or not, despite the fact that I know this is coming every time, I do not think ahead of how I feel about these things.
It's fine. I love it. Off the cuff. Would you recommend it?
No.
Okay, that caught me off guard.
Yeah, I don't.
Really?
Here's the thing. If you've not already seen Groundhog Day, I'm not going to recommend it. I don't think it aged well.
That I haven't got to that question yet, Nelson.
Oh, that's one of the questions.
That's one of the questions. That's one of the questions as well. We've
Well,
always done.
that's
All right, I'll let you answer that one. Has it aged well?
no.
Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting.
No, I don't believe it's aged well. And that's a problem for comedies in general because comedies inspire, almost all art inspires later art.
Yeah.
Right. So just the same way that Star Wars feels slow, and we've talked about this several times.
Yeah.
This movie feels samey to a lot of 90s and 80s comedies.
Yeah.
Especially if you've seen any of their Harold Ramis movies.
Ramis.
Whatever. Sam Raimi movies. If you've seen Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3...
Same thing.
And Evil Dead, this movie's going to feel totally different.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it aged well, and as a result, I don't think I'd recommend it.
Okay.
Now, it's not very common that somebody hasn't already seen Groundhog Day.
It's true.
And so I almost think that the question's nearly irrelevant. But even in the situation where somebody hasn't already seen it, I'm probably not going to be like, hey, you need to see this.
Yeah. I agree with you on both questions. I disagree with you on both questions.
Oh, okay.
But I understand where you're coming from. So, it's just, so for me, it's not like I'm not going to debate this one because like I get it. I don't.
But I would like you to make your. I won't respond. But I want you to make your case why I'm wrong in your disagreement.
And I'll probably just say it's probably because I'm in the honeymoon phase with this movie because like I just enjoyed my first time with it.
Yeah.
It was very nice. And honestly, like even though it's a concept that's been done before.
You know what? I'm disappointed with myself because while trying to think of a punchline for that, you gave me just such a great one, and I didn't even catch it right away. And I'm sorry for that. That snuck up on me, Jeff.
As she does. I liked it. It wasn't a new concept, but I liked the way it was presented. And I like Bill Murray. I've always enjoyed Bill Murray. And there's a lot of Bill Murray I haven't seen, but what I have seen, I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed, I liked the way he was depicted in that situation. I thought he did well. Andie MacDowell was a great actress. Like I thought she did really well in that character. And it was fun while also emotionally challenging. You know, not super hard, but it did make me think critically, and some things are just, I was emotionally attached and I was like, oh man, like, yeah, like this just took a turn. Like it's not often you get suicide in comedy movies and then it just keeps going on. Like
several suicides.
Several. Yeah. Like it's just there was a lot of roller coaster moments of emotion and I appreciated that.
I'm going to say something very controversial that I've never actually said before because of how controversial it is.
Okay.
And I do want to put a disclaimer on this that I do not have an explanation for my opinion on this. I don't like Bill Murray.
Okay.
I want to.
Okay.
I get that everybody loves him. But there's something about him that just like it's not even indifference. Like I dislike. So I don't know what it is.
And I'm not going to argue that. I mean, that's fine. Like it's
entirely irrational.
I had that opinion about other actors or actresses that people would be shocked about. So yeah, sure. I'm cool with that. We can still be friends.
Oh, good.
Question 2.
We're no longer friends, but we will still continue to co-host this podcast.
Correct. Would you change the rating? It was rated. It's PG. Would you with the content in it? Would you change it? I had the same thought about this question because like the language is mild. There's no F-bombs.
Yeah. No actual nudity.
No nudity. There is implied sex,
but also
there's
implied sex, but never said sex. So like you don't know what sex is because you're a kid.
But there is some straddling and there is kissing us, but not.
It's almost like
it's mild compared to what we've seen most of the time now.
Yeah, it's almost like too much for PG, but not enough to justify PG-13.
But so for me, and if I can help your thinking here, like just the sexuality was enough for me to go PG's fine. I've seen worse on TV.
Yeah,
like cable television during the day, where I was like, okay, yeah, sure, parental guidance, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
it was the suicide moments for me. That the multiple suicide attempts for me, I was like, it's not violent, but it implies self-harm. For me, that I was like, I feel like 13. Yeah, I mean 13, which is still pretty young. I was like, yeah, for me, PG-13 would be for that topic specifically. Everything else, I think, would have been fine PG. I know you're aware of local events and stuff, and like in Ohio, the last recently a couple of years, suicide has been pretty common. Unfortunately,
not just in Ohio,
right? Not just in Ohio, but I know like, but us where we are, like we've been hit hard here locally. Yeah. But I know it also has been globally, and just like so, I guess because of that being relevant, like I feel like that's something that should be given a little bit more caution.
Sure.
Or just acknowledgement.
The writers, directors also struggle with how to handle that and how flippant should we be.
Right.
I think the way they went about that was about as good as you could do with it.
Right.
Without not doing it entirely.
I
think not doing it really underserves the story and the theme.
Yeah, I agree. Because like if you look at like, I mean, obviously Avengers Endgame is PG-13, but like there's, essentially you've got two characters fighting to kill themselves in one for the Soul Stone. So there's other movies where it's done and you're like, you don't really think anything of it because but in this movie, like
it's right in your face.
That's the focus point. And that for me was the pivotal point. Is like, you're focusing on the suicide, not on the why. Yeah. He's doing it just to get rid of himself. They're doing it to save someone. In this movie, suicide is the end all. And for me, that should be talked about.
Yeah, I think it really straddles the line between PG and PG-13.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think also just like as a parental guideline, because really ratings only apply to parents because it's informative and that's about it. Yeah. It's a parental guideline. If you can't decide if it's PG or PG-13, it's PG-13. Or
maybe for the parents, PG-14.
And if it's PG-13 and 3/4. Yeah. And the same thing with PG-13 and R. Like if you watch it and you can't determine, is this okay for my 13-year-old kid, but or maybe my 15-year-old? Like it's just like, okay, no, just go with the older. Well, I mean, like there's nothing lost by just erring on the side of the stricter rating.
Right. I agree.
So,
all right. Last question, which I think I'm kind of getting the idea of what your answer is. Would this be in your top 250?
Probably not.
Okay.
I like the movie. I like it a lot.
You don't think it would?
I just don't think it aged.
You can think of 250 movies. Well, you could probably think of 250 movies that you'd prefer.
Let's start. So
that joke will never get old.
It's always
until episode 251. Then we'll have to get new material.
It's such a dumb joke, and I love it every time. Yeah. No, well, here's the thing. It's almost like a comfort food comedy.
Yeah.
Like
it's a holiday movie. I mean, it really is. It has everything that what a holiday movie would.
Mm-hmm.
There's suicide in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, that's true.
There's attempted suicide in It's a Wonderful Life. So I mean, it's a holiday movie.
So is that what determines whether or not it's a holiday movie? Does somebody try to kill themselves?
Attempted suicide in it. Yeah. We joke, but we obviously Nelson and I.
That's how they do the.
We don't want to make suicide a laughing matter, but yeah, in that nuance, yeah. I think it would be at this. point,
you saying that just makes me want to make more jokes about suicide. Right? You know that.
I know. I try to be. I don't like being crass just to be crass. Like I know,
but when
I also don't want to hurt people.
When you say when you tell me something's not funny. I'm like, want to bet?
Just flipped a switch. But last question. Okay, so for me, I think it would be.
Yeah.
As of right now, I think it would be in my 250. Like I enjoyed it. It was a good experience. I will definitely watch it again. I want my wife to watch it.
We've done movies that wouldn't make your top 250, but this would.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Correct. Yeah.
Honeymoon Phase.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah. And maybe we'll come back to this one. And like I said, I am currently starting to rank my movies now.
Yeah.
Like, since we started this, I'm ranking.
Where's this one hit?
So,
out of 11 so far.
So yeah, this is our 11th episode. This is in my top 5.
Really?
Yeah. Do you want my top 5, or do you want me to just keep it vague?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
that's good enough.
But yeah, this is in my top 5.
You can give them if you want. But.
No, I'll wait till we have more movies in our episode catalog before I start giving my ranking. Because
actually, every episode since you started ranking them, you've read them all off.
Yeah, so this one I will not today. But obviously the more we add, the more we, because it's a pretty diverse grouping, and so it's kind of hard to see where my allegiance lies. But I know where it doesn't lie, and that's with movie 11, Clockwork Orange. That is my least favorite movie, and I can't wait to kick that off my top 250 list.
Good movie.
No, stop. Anyways, I think that's it for the episode. Nelson, do you have anything else, my man?
Yeah, check out Tuttle Twins.
Yes, do it. If not for us, just for yourself. Even if you don't buy anything on the link, the value is there for you to look into because
you'll be glad you did.
Right, it is good material.
Even just watch the free YouTube show.
Yeah,
and then if you think that's good, go buy the books.
Right.
If you do that, use our link, please.
Yeah, if you want to support us, that'd be great. But just so you know that we're not doing this just because it's a sales pitch. We do thoroughly enjoy it.
Yes,
and it's quality material that you should check out for yourself, whether it benefits us or not.
That's right. Now, second ad spot over. There is still one more thing. A thing that got left out in the last episode, and I had to put it in post.
Okay.
What are we covering next, Jeffrey?
Yes, I hope I say this right, Nelson.
Yes.
Princess Mononoke?
Princess Mononoke.
Mononoke. I did not say it right. Shoot.
With
Mononoke.
With special guest Cassie.
Yes.
She was a art teacher for several years. She's a big fan of Studio Ghibli films.
She's just a dedicated artist now.
She's a dedicated artist.
That's awesome.
And we're excited to have her on. Our second female guest.
Yes, second female guest and our second Studio Ghibli film.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the list here. Just want to make sure. Our second movie that would be in a category together.
Second anime.
It's second anime. Like we haven't done any sequels. We haven't done any directors, like duplicate directors.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
duplicate directors yet.
Yeah,
so this is a sequel in many senses. Princess Mononoke, Studio Ghibli, next week. Man, this has been good. Episode 11 in the books.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. We're just getting started, guys. Like, we've got so much more in the pipeline.
Yeah.
We had a big episode last time.
At least 240 other things in the pipeline.
With Doc Dixon, we were still coming off the high of what that episode was and getting to experience and talk with him. That was great.
Yeah.
And just all the stuff that we've got in the pipeline. Like, this is fun. Thank you for being along with us. And we hope you come along for the rest of the episodes. This is going to be cool.
Yeah.
I'm stuttering there. Yeah.
Cool fool.
Cool fool. Yes. Just what Nelson and I are. All right. I think that's it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Adios, Jefe.
Ciao. Thanks for listening. We had a great time putting this together for you.
To join the conversation, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Silver Screen Biases.
And on Twitter at Screen Biases.
We believe in value for value, so if you found value in our show, we ask you to consider supporting us.
Links to our social media and support can be found in the show notes.